Hello everyone, in spirit of Halloween, and the fact that we have no new Jujutsu chapter this week, I decided now would be a pretty good time to do a video talking about the main antagonistic force in Jujutsu Kaisen. Not the current main villain Kenjaku, but the overall force of evil and conflict in the Jujutsu world, and that is the cursed spirits, the physical manifestations of humanity's negative thoughts and emotions. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of the strongest curses in the series, not necessarily doing like a top 10 list. I'm going to be talking about curses that I have on different levels of power for different reasons. It's a little hard to explain. You'll get the gist of it once we get into it. This is mostly just an opportunity for me to talk about some of the more prominent, important, and powerful cursed spirits. Now, before I get into the video, I of course have to give a shout out to my wonderful patrons. Special thanks to Fuse, Neo, Dijon Redden, Anthony Chavez, Honey Mustard, Zach Rowitz, K-God, Chris Redfield, Scratch23, Rap, Ryzen 4K, Artist, Mac Campaign, Wave of Manga, and Sam the Ace. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And if you too want to get a shout out at some point in the video, or access to reviews for Solo Leveling and the Boxer, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. And of course, if you haven't already, you should definitely subscribe. I guarantee if everyone watching this video right now who hasn't already subscribed, we would reach our goal of 4,000 subscribers in no time. So with that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Starting off, we have the undisputed most powerful curse in the series, the aptly titled King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna. I feel like, well, other than the fact that we've been told he's the strongest, and we've pretty much seen through almost every time he's shown up that he is the strongest, one of the most important things to bring up is that we still have not seen everything Sukuna is capable of, and we don't know what his true power is. As of right now in the story, Sukuna currently possesses 15 of his 20 fingers. Assuming all of his power is equally distributed among his fingers, he's only got 75% of his power. So there is still a lot more room for Sukuna to grow, and the fact that as he is now already, people compare him to Gojo. There are some people that think he can already beat Gojo just with 15 fingers. End of series Sukuna is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Just disgusting. We already know how powerful Gojo is. We haven't actually seen a serious present Gojo. We have no idea what the absolute limits of Gojo's power are in the present. So, presumably, when the time comes for Gojo to escape the prison realm and for Sukuna to, I don't know, either take over Yuji's body entirely or escape Yuji's body with all of his power, we are probably going to be seeing an all-out battle between the two, and it is going to be something that is just absolutely incomparable to probably just about any other fight in the series. Now, one of the spookier aspects of Sukuna is that we don't actually know what his true curse technique is. We've seen various techniques from him: dismantle, cleave, and the most mysterious being this unnamed fire ability that he started using in his fight against Jogo. It's really not clear what exactly his technique is. He has refused to enlighten us because he would consider that cheating to use that in a fight. But there are a few theories. One is that Sukuna's powers are all based around the 4 or 5 elements, depending on which version of that you're going on. This is in Japan, so it's probably 5 elements. So the cleave and dismantle are the air elements. This fire ability is, of course, fire. And then we still have to see if he has a water, earth, and wood ability, which would actually kind of line up with the other disaster spirits really well. What a coincidence. I wonder if that would mean anything. But yes, Sukuna is just... he's the king of curses for a reason. Not really much more to say about him. Now, if there is a king, there must of course be a queen. Sometimes. I don't know if that's actually how that works. And there's not really even any actual connection between the two, but in addition to the King of Curses, we also have the Queen of Curses, Rika Orimoto, the vengeful curse spirit, created by our favorite second-year special grade sorcerer, Yuta Akotsu. Rika is also one of the strongest curses in the series, and we're really not entirely sure what her full capabilities are. We know that she is a basically boundless well of cursed energy that Yuta is able to use to produce immense destructive power, or to use basically as a circuit for copying other people's techniques without any real conditions, which is really stupidly busted anyway. Basically, Yuta has the most busted abilities in the series, and a lot of that, at least in Volume 0, was thanks to Rika. So, if there's anyone in the present who can probably fight current Sukuna, it would be Yuta and Rika. Now, we don't know what the deal is with Rika in the present, because at the end of Volume 0, she was supposedly, passing on into the afterlife, was no longer tied to Yuta, at least not in the way that she was. So we've still, at this point of recording this video, not yet found out what the deal is with Rika's current state in the series. But I think it's very safe to assume that Rika still has probably just about as much power as she at least had in her normal form. Of course, Rika then had a released form in which she was able to produce enough energy to overcome an Uzumaki created by Geto using over 1,000 cursed spirits. So, yeah, I think the fact that she could pretty easily overcome that quantity of power goes to show that, yeah, Rika is a little busted. Would she be strong enough to take on a full-powered Sukuna? Probably not. Is she strong enough to take on current Sukuna? Maybe. Who knows? Hopefully we're going to find out at some point. I think there's a little bit of teasing for a Sukuna and Yuta fight as well at some point in the future. So that should be pretty exciting to see. Taking a bit of a step down in the power scaling, we have who I would consider to actually be perhaps the most dangerous cursed spirit in the series, and that would be everyone's favorite Majito. Yes, we all just love Majito, me included. Now, the reason Majito is so dangerous is because of his absolutely ridiculous growth and potential for further growth. We need to consider that Majito manifested about 2 or 3 months prior to the events of the Shibuya incident. Now, he was born with the ability of idle transfiguration, the power to alter the shape of the soul and alter the shape of the body in response to that. Probably the most broken aspect of this is his power to unlock curse techniques within people that would not have unlocked them otherwise. Basically, he can just make sorcerers. And we see how powerful this is after Kenjaku absorbed him and used idle transfiguration to do that on pretty much a national scale across all of Japan. So that already really dangerous. Then we have the absolutely absurd amounts of growth that Majito underwent in such a short period of time. He learned how to make specialized transfigured humans. He learned domain expansion. He learned how to overcome simple domain. He learned how to perform Black Flash, which is a technique that is supposedly able to elevate sorcerers up to another level through their increased understanding of cursed energy. So his new understanding of cursed energy is way above what it already was, and that's super dangerous because the potency of idle transfiguration is pretty much based on Mahito's understanding of it and his imagination. The limits of idle transfiguration are basically his imagination. And Majito is a child, effectively, so he has more imagination and room for growth than any of the other curses, pretty much. So, yeah. What else can he do? He's able to make clones of himself, pretty much. They aren't able to use idle transfiguration on other people, but they're still dangerous. They still have the same body morphing abilities that he has, so they are still able to change the shape of their bodies to be more effective in combat. He learned how to perform a domain expansion in 0.2 seconds just by experiencing Gojo doing this. Now, Gojo did this on the fly as an impromptu tactic to meet the situation he was in, and Gojo is the greatest sorcerer in the world. He is a genius, at least. And the fact that Majito was able to copy this just by experiencing it once is so nuts. The way they explain this is not just doing domain expansion really fast. Domain expansion is a multi-step process. You create a domain, and then you attach a technique to it. With a 0.2 second domain expansion, you do both steps at the same time. It is not a multi-step process anymore. You do both in a fifth of a second. It's pretty much an instant guaranteed attack. The danger of domain expansions is that unless you have anti-domain techniques, like simple domain, or if you're really lucky, like Yuji going up against Majito, idle transfiguration is not able to affect Yuji, so Yuji's immune to the domain expansion. But essentially, Majito is able to attack someone instantly with idle transfiguration without even needing to touch them, which is the only real weakness to idle transfiguration, is you must touch the person with the palm of your hand. And it's so fast that effectively no character is able to react to it. Even Todo, who has absolutely stupid reaction times, was not able to activate simple domain fast enough to avoid being hit with the 0.2 second idle transfiguration. And then, of course, we have the final form that Majito managed to achieve, the instant spirit body of distorted killing, which was basically him transforming his body into such a state where he didn't need to change the shape anymore. I understand it was essentially a binding vow that he would not alter the shape of his body other than the blades on his arms, and in exchange his physical stats would basically be doubled. It's a perfect killing machine. The points of his changes to his own body were for the purpose of making them more effective for this scenario. Instant spirit body of distorted killing doesn't need to be changed because it's perfect for any scenario, pretty much. Now, this was the last we saw of Mahito's growth, because he was absorbed by Kenjaku and then used up on an Uzumaki that didn't do anything. A very fitting fate for him, because fuck Majito. Now, the thing is, if this did not happen, I am very confident that Majito would have just kept growing from there. His growth rate is exponential. He just kept getting exponentially more powerful the further things went on and the more he experienced. Now, Sukuna told Jogo in his dying moments that in order to reach the levels of himself and Satoru Gojo, he would have to be someone that did not care about anything and would just burn everything down. And I think Majito fits that description perfectly. I am very confident that if Majito was not defeated by Yuji and absorbed by Kenjaku at the end of the Shibuya incident, we would have another contender for the King of Curses right here. Now, time to give a little bit of a shout out to the Disaster Spirits, because these guys are pretty much the special grades as far as we've gotten in the series. When we think of special grade spirits, these are generally the guys that we think of. And we should first give a shout out to Jogo, who I would consider to be the most powerful of the Disaster Spirits, not including Majito. I don't think Majito has the same destructive power as Jogo, or really maybe any of the other Disaster Spirits, but he is just so dangerous that it puts him on a level beyond those guys. Jogo and the other Disaster Spirits have a very high level of destructive power. Jogo, I would say, has more destructive power than almost any other character in the series. He is probably top 5 when it comes to sheer destructive power. I mean, just look at Maximum Meteor. It was leveling city blocks. We haven't really had many other characters give a feat like that other than Sukuna, who then vaporized several city blocks by cutting them into dust. But in addition to the immense destructive power that Jogo has, he is one of the fastest characters in the series, really only surpassed by a few. Sukuna, Gojo, Majito. He is explicitly at least a little faster than Jogo, but that's pretty much it. Now, when you combined extreme destructive power with very high speed, you get someone that can speed blitz very hard, and we see Jogo can speed blitz people. So credit to him for that. Now, below Jogo, we of course have Hanami. Hanami is rather unfortunate because we've never actually seen everything that pretty sure Hanami's actually a she. We've never seen everything she can do. We know that she had a domain expansion. We never saw what it was. But I would say the most impressive aspect of Hanami is her absolutely ridiculous durability. Taking, 5 consecutive black flashes from Yuji, just getting constantly beaten on by Yuji and Todo, and then getting hit in her weak spot by Todo, who imbued an attack from Playful Cloud with a lot of his cursed energy. Jogo explicitly would not survive that. So Hanami maybe takes the cake as one of the most durable characters in the entire series. Definitely not the strongest of the disaster spirits, but most certainly able to take more punishment than almost any of them. The only one that's comparable would probably be Dagon, and I quite like Dagon for the reason that I think we got to see pretty much all they were able to do. I don't think any of the other disaster spirits got quite as good of a full showcasing of their abilities, other than, I guess, Majito. Jogo pretty much only had real fights against the two tops of the verse, just kicking the shit out of him, and Hanami never got to have a showcase of them going all out. Whereas Dagon did. Dagon got to fight 2 grade 1s, Maki, who was at least on the level of a grade 2 at that point, and then Megumi, who was developing domain expansion, and he was still going to beat all of them if Toji didn't show up, and even then, Toji only did as well against Dagon. I say that as if he had a hard time, but he would have had a much harder time if it weren't for Megumi doing the domain tug of war, because then Dagon's guaranteed hit attack would still exist, and as far as we could tell, Toji did not have any way at the moment to counteract that. So Dagon did a really good job showing us just how powerful a disaster spirit truly is when they are given an opportunity to go all out against people that, won't stomp all over them, but also people who won't just die instantly. Now then, the last curse I would like to talk about in today's video, Chozo. I think Chozo is a really good example of what a special grade should be. He also goes to show that characters can be really strong without having a domain expansion. I would say Chozo is probably the strongest character who likely doesn't have one, yet at least. I do think Yuta may have developed a domain expansion. At the very least, Chozo is the strongest curse that does not have a domain expansion. I would say he's stronger than the Smallpox deity, and that thing even has a domain expansion, even though it's kind of crap. Chozo, very durable, seemingly very skilled in hand-to-hand combat, but, the big deal for Chozo is his blood manipulation. Now, the best thing about Chozo's blood manipulation, beyond the absolutely ridiculous versatility that blood manipulation has, is that Chozo is completely lacking in the greatest weakness of blood manipulation. As long as he has cursed energy, it is impossible for him to bleed out. So he can just pretty much infinitely produce blood as long as he's got cursed energy. And that means the weaknesses that exist for people like Kamo, who need to pre-pack blood before going into battle, just don't exist. He can just do whatever with it, pretty much. This gives him options at long range, mid-range, and close range. He's able to take on grade 1 level characters and beat them without really much difficulty. If it weren't for Mechamaru's help, or the environment that Yuji was fighting him in, I think Yuji probably would have lost much more soundly. He was going to probably die if it weren't for Mechamaru's help, and then he managed to beat Naoya, who, albeit did not understand Chozo's power, and was also a cocky moron, still kind of won pretty soundly against him. So, if it were up to me, Chozo would actually be the baseline for what a special grade spirit is. Fuck the cursed womb spirits, those things can be beaten by most of the grade 1s that we've seen in the series. Chozo feels like the legitimate threat that a special grade should be. So if it were up to me, Chozo would be the definitive special grade. And then beings like the disaster spirits would feel much more significant in being beyond special grade. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Jujutsu Kaisen chapter reactions and reviews. Every week we get a new chapter, and when we don't get a new chapter, I usually do something like this. If you enjoy discussing Jujutsu Kaisen with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce on this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.